Hello, this is Watch All About with another watch review, and in this review we're looking at an offering from Boulder. This is the Chrono Seafarer Blue. So if we just open up the box, and we have a little note here, which is very kind of them, and here we have the watch in question. So the price of this watch is $225 or £175, currently on offer at $185 or £145. Now, the good thing and the nice thing about this company, Boulder, is that you can select up to 50% of the price, which goes to charity. And currently, at the moment, the two charities that they're supporting are a children's charity and also a domestic violence charity. So obviously, from an ethical perspective, very, very nice of them to do so, to arrange something like that. So you get a little selector when you buy a watch, whether you want 10% all the way up to 50% to go through. The rest goes through to the watch company, obviously. So that's quite a nice ethical point of view from their perspective. So let's have a look at the watch in question. Quite a nice minimal style, dressy kind of watch. Fairly large at 43mm in diameter, but we'll discuss the specs now. So if I just pop it on my approximately 7¼ inch wrist, here we have it. So again, let's talk about the specs. 43mm diameter, a relatively slender 11.5mm height, and a lug-to-lug length of 50mm. So yeah, from like a smart minimalist style watch perspective, probably on the slightly larger scale, but I think larger watches are quite popular nowadays, so certainly you can get away with it. Weight-wise, it's 83 grams, so not too crazy heavy, but heavy enough for you to feel it on the wrist. Certainly comfortable enough to wear all day long if you want to. Water resistance is 10 atmospheres or 100 meters, so you are covered for a little bit. I wouldn't go swimming in it. You've got a leather strap on it, so I wouldn't recommend that anyway. The movement is Swiss made. It's a Ronda 5 series, and as you can see, it's a chronograph as well. So if I hit the older chronograph start, so we've got running seconds here over on the right hand side. Our big seconds hand is the chronograph seconds hand. We then have a 12-hour indicator here, which is the chronograph, and then 30-minute chronograph indicator here on the left. It also has a date at 4-ish as well. So, Swiss-made movement, nice and sturdy, nothing really to go wrong with it. If it does go wrong, it's going to be pretty cheap to replace. So that's pretty good news. 20mm width of the strap as well, so decent size in comparison to the case, I think. It looks pretty good in terms of ratio. No complaints there, and obviously 20mm is one of the most common sizes going, so you will always have the opportunity to change straps if you want to. However, the strap is actually really nice quality. We'll discuss that in a little bit. So the final thing to talk about is their warranty. Now, they offer a lifetime warranty, which is very, very impressive. That is against manufacturing defects, but also free batteries for life, which is pretty impressive. Usually, these quartz movements, they tend to last between 2 and 4 or 5 years. So, in a couple of years when your battery does die, then they will offer to replace it for free, which is quite nice. And quite impressive that they do that. So that's a pretty decent positive. Okay, so let's take it off and have a look at it in closer detail, aspect by aspect. So starting off with the dial. So as you can see, quite a minimalist design. I do like the fact that it has a very subtle depth to it. We have the logo, which is embossed. Subdials are also set on a lower level, and then this outer edge as well. And then on top of that are hour markers are applied as well, with a reasonable depth to them. So they are, it's subtle, but it has a gentle amount of depth, which keeps things nice and interesting, but still, relatively clean and crisp. Obviously, print work is kept to a minimal just on the subdial markings. We have our white date wheel at 4-ish as well. So yeah, a nice modern alternative to the minimalist kind of style of watches. So I do like the design. They've done a good job on it. I think the sub-dials are probably a little bit too cramped together. That's mainly because it's a 43mm diameter. So maybe if it was a little bit smaller, the spacing around the sub-dials would be a little bit more condensed, and so the dial wouldn't look quite so out of sync around the outside. So maybe they could have made the case a tiny bit smaller, in my opinion. However, the finishing of the dial is really good. As I mentioned before, the applied hour markers, nice quality. We'll have a look at it much closer with a macro lens on later on. And then our hands, nicer alternative style to what you see so often, a syringe style. And they're like a polished steel, so they reflect the light, as you can see, as well as the hour markers. So good legibility as well. There we have it. Nice, you can't complain, really. And I think they've done a decent job in a simple chronograph with a slight twist to the modern minimalist style that we see so often. Moving on to the case then. Pretty standard barrel case. However, I do like the stepped bezel. As you can see here, we have a brush top, but then these this edging here has a very slight step to it and a fully polished side, so that keeps things nice and interesting. And if we have a look at our lugs, they're quite nice and shapely as well. It's all brushed around the sides, which is good for, you know, wearing it. That will obviously hold up better to any scratches or knocks. Flipping it over to the case back, fully brushed as well. Boulder logo sort of lightly engraved in the center, and then some various specifics around the outside. So sapphire crystal as well, and I think the crystal is fairly clear actually. It picks up fingerprints quite easily, as you can sort of tell if I give it a slight rub, but clarity is pretty good. I think mainly because it's a nice blue dial, keeps the reflections at bay as well. So only when you get it right up into a light does it really reflect badly. But certainly from a day-to-day perspective, legibility is perfectly fine. Okay, so carrying on with the case, here's our crown with the Boulder logo engraved on the side. Decent grip as well, so it's nice and easy to use. Our pushers are pump grip style. Nice, decent feedback when you use it as well. If I just reset this timer, here we go. So nice and easy to use, and brushed as well to match the rest of the case. Moving on to the strap then, we have quick release pins, and as I mentioned before, the quality is actually really, really nice. And I particularly like the design of the buckle. As you can see, quite unusual. Usually on these kind of watches you'd see the same buckle over and over again, but I really like the way that they've created something a little bit different. The leather is really soft, very supple as well, so it's really lovely. I certainly wouldn't feel the need at all to change it. It's that nice, very, very gentle on the skin as well. I like the matching blue stitching too. It's just really lovely quality leather. Very, very impressed by it. And if I take it off, we can see there's some print work on the underside as well. So yeah, the buckle is brushed also, so that will keep the scratches at bay. Okay, so let's get the macro lens on and we'll have a look at it in closer detail. So starting off with the dial. Here we can see our logo nicely embossed onto the dial. Moving on to our hands, you can see our syringe style as well. Pretty nice and neat. Nice angular gentle point as well to it. So decent finishing on all the hands, very straightforward point on the second hand. Moving on to a sub-dial, here's our 30-minute counter. Again, set down another level. We see we have a very slight texture to the dial as well, which is nice to see. Our subdials here and here. That's our running seconds hand. Our date window is just cut straight out of the dial. Maybe that would have been nicer if it had a little bit of specific finishing around it, especially for the price. And here we have our, we'll just give it another very quick wipe. Here we have some of our applied hour markers. Again, nice and thick depth to them, good quality. Anything else I can show you? Here we go. So we've got a little bit of markings on that, but that's only really visible when you're really up close. You can't see it to the naked eye. Okay, moving on to the case then. Here we have our bezel, brush top, and as I mentioned previously, our polished stepped side, which is nice to see. And then moving on to our brushed side. Here's one of our lugs, quite a soft, gentle, curved edge there. A little bit of picking up a bit of fluff and dirt. Over on the other side, we have our crown, so decent B logo engraved on the end. Good, decent grip to it as well. Then one of our pushers, pump grip style, completely brushed. Looks good and is nice and easy to use. Again, quite curved edges, which is quite nice to see as well. Flipping it over to our case back, here's the Boulder logo engraved in the center, and then these various details engraved as well. There we go, there's some of the little notches for the screw and case back. So our leather strap, here's our quick release pin, and then flipping it over, see the top grain, lovely and soft, and the matching blue stitching as well, which is nice to see. And the underside over here, we have a bit of stamp work. Okay, Boulder watch. And finally our buckle, again with our B logo engraved on the end. Quite an unusual, nice shape as well to it. Fully polished, fully brushed, sorry. Okay, so I think from a pricing perspective, the RRP probably is a little bit on the high side. However, you do have to take into consideration the fact that you get a lifetime warranty, which is obviously quite important to keep in mind. They have a business to run at the end of the day, and if they want to offer a lifetime warranty, obviously it's completely their right to charge this kind of price. Also taking into consideration the fact that, you know, you get the opportunity to send 50% to charity, which is really, really nice from an ethical perspective. So I think design-wise, very nice watch. When you're wearing it, certainly the 43mm diameter is quite impressive when you're wearing it. Let's pop it on. And the lovely leather strap as well is another plus. So you do have to take all these things into consideration. Certainly, it's caught the eye of a few of the other people that I meet with. They do really like the look of it, and it does stand out in the watch box as well. So fair play to them for creating a minimal modern chronograph, you know, which has a very slight twist to it. It doesn't look like every other minimal modern watch, does it? They've done a good job in creating some very slightly different design cues, and it's just solidly built in general. You know, no major issues or concerns that I've noticed or found. Just the fact from a design perspective, perhaps the case could have been a little bit smaller, really, but that's just personal preference, you know, in my opinion. So if you like the design, then I certainly think, you know, you'd be happy with the purchase if you were to buy one of these watches. So this was the Boulder Chrono Seafarer Blue. That's what you're all about. So thanks for watching, guys. Take it easy. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment as well. Thanks, and see you next time.